Palermo, Rowe, Bagley, Harding, Johnson, Melton. Mr. President.
Johnson.
Wow. Good afternoon, everyone. Please have a seat. Thank you. Hi, Matt. I just wanted to acknowledge your department, the Parks Department, for helping with the Coons Park cleanup on July 16th. Your department did an awesome job, excellent job. They stayed there at the beginning of the cleanup all the way to the end. And they helped us with a number of things. Anything that we needed help with, they were there to assist us, and they had no issues with giving us a helping hand. And as you know, the park looks exceptionally well. And I just wanted to acknowledge you and your department for the job well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move into the two proclamations. And all of my conversation today is centered around parks cleanup. In North Omaha, we had a park called Coons Park. We do have Coons Park that's located on the boulevard. Um, and it was in a much need of help. The neighbors and the residents were uh, very at some odds with us as a city in terms of getting the area cleaned up and all of those kinds of things. So, along with me and a number of people in the area, persons like Creighton, OEDC, uh, social clubs, a variety of individuals here in Omaha, Nebraska joined in on a volunteer effort that made a huge impact to that park. That park is now something that we can embrace and lift our heads up to and say, what a job well done. And so today I would like to acknowledge two significant players in bringing that project together. And the first individual I would like to acknowledge is Danny Robinson. If you would please come up to the podium, please. This is honoring Danny Robinson, Los Diablos, whereas Danny Robinson provided the leadership and assembled the team and tools that contributed to the cleanup of Coons Park on July 16, 2022. And for 16 years, Danny Robinson has been a dedicated servant to residents of City of Omaha and to the members of Los Diablos at the national as the national president. And the important work of Los Diablos under Danny's direction cannot be quantified in the economic benefits to the Omaha community or in the compassion experienced by so many served, but can only be measured by the tremendous gratitude we have for Danny's exceptional and selfless service. And whereas Danny Robinson truly exemplifies the noble endeavor to leave a place better than when found, and in doing so inspires all of us to do the same. Whereas residents of Omaha have have recognized Danny for his legacy of caring and for the imprint he leaves upon our community. Therefore, we, the City of Omaha, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022, as Danny Robinson Day.
Thank
Danny,
you.
thank you
You're
for
welcome.
your teamwork. Thank you for exemplifying what leadership means. Thank you for being a servant leader in the Omaha community. your efforts are very, very much notable.
You're very welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. The second individual that we would like to acknowledge today is Ken Reed Booley. And that would be someone, we're having a representative.
Yes, unfortunately, Ken couldn't make it today, so I'm Rick Davis representing Creighton and our students.
Great, thank you, Rick. I
you.
appreciate you for stepping in
You
for
bet.
Rick, for Ken.
You bet.
All right, we're gonna honor Ken Reed Booley, Creighton University. Ken Reed Booley provided the leadership and assembled the team and tools that contributed to the cleanup of the Coons Park on July 16, 2022. And for several years, Ken Reed Booley has been a dedicated servant to residents of Omaha, to the Omaha community, and the director of Schlegel Center for Service and Justice, also known as SCSJ at Creighton University. And whereas the important work of SCSJ under Ken's direction cannot be quantified in the economic benefit to the Omaha community or in the compassion experience so many served, but can only be measured by the tremendous gratitude we have for Ken's exceptional and selfless service. And Ken Reed Booley truly exemplifies the noble endeavor to leave a place better than when found, and in doing so inspire all of us to do the same. Whereas residents of Omaha have generously supported Creighton University. On behalf of the City of Omaha, the City Council would like to recognize Ken for his legacy of caring and for the imprint he leaves upon our community. Therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Omaha, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022, as Ken Reed Booley Day.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you on behalf of Ken and Creighton.
Thank you for the students. Thank you for your participation on that day. Thank you for the students, bringing them in. You guys really showed us as a community what volunteerism looks like. And also you showed us what working together as a team really accomplish much when we
Absolutely.
do it collectively and we get the job done.
I agree.
Appreciate your help. Thank
I agree.
you.
We had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of legislative chambers.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Omaha City Council. We appreciate your attendance here today and your input on our many items we have on our agenda. I would encourage you to turn your cell phones off or at least turn them to vibrate. We do have one more presentation here this morning before we start our regular agenda, and that is to note the Blues Society of Omaha. And I'll read a proclamation on their behalf. I think we have some representatives here if you want to come to the podium, and then when I'm done, we'll give you a chance to talk about your event. And the proclamation reads like this. Whereas the Blues Society of Omaha was founded in 1998 to foster and nurture projects which promote the artistic appreciation of blues and jazz music, music education for underprivileged children, and enriching the community through activities promoting blues music. And whereas in 2001, the Blues Society of Omaha created Blues Ed, a nonprofit youth artist development program, which currently operates 4 youth bands and provides opportunities for young musicians to perform with other students. And whereas the Blues Society of Omaha, an all-volunteer nonprofit, produces and sponsors music events throughout the year, including the Market for Blues, Omaha's Blues Fest, is a sponsor for Playing with Fire, hosts an annual toy drive, and concert fundraiser for the children and families of the Pine Ridge Reservation, and produces charitable events for musicians in Omaha throughout the year. And whereas Saturday, August 6th, 2022, celebrates the 8th anniversary of In the Market for Blues and features more than 40 blues bands at 12 different venues throughout downtown Omaha for 14 hours of blues music. Now therefore be resolved that the City of Omaha officially designates Saturday, August 6th, 2022 as Blues Day in the City of Omaha. Congratulations. If you want to take a second to introduce yourselves and tell us about the events this weekend.
My name is Christine Begley Schaus, and I'm on the Blues Society of Omaha Board of Directors, and we are thrilled to have this proclamation acknowledge the Blues Society and all we've done for Omaha's live music scene, and we appreciate all of your efforts to acknowledge our Blues Day event. So we have 12 venues, 40 bands. We're going to have a free event on the Jean Leahy Mall. And so we're very excited, and we invite all of you to come to our event on Blues Day, August 6th.
Excellent, thank you. I can tell you I'm reading a book right now, too, that's all about American blues into British rock and roll. It's a fascinating read. I'll share with you later.
Ooh, okay. Very good. Okay. Do we get a picture? Thank you. Good job. Thank you.
Yes, that would be yours.
Are we good? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Ready? Item 6, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for Menard Subdivision Replat 6, located northwest of 205th Street and Cumberland Drive. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 6 is today. Proponents, please.
My name is Terry Morrison with Earhart Griffin and Associates. I'm here on behalf of the owner. I'm at 3552 Farnham Street. I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any other proponents on number 6? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 6 is approved, 7-0. Item 7, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for Regency Landing located northwest of 197th Avenue and Pacific Street with a request for waiver to Section 5384D lot frontage. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 7 is today. Proponents, please.
Kyle Haase with E&A Consulting Group, 10909 Mill Valley Road, representing the applicant. Make myself available for any questions that the council may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 7 is approved, 7-0. Items 8 through 11 can be considered together for Vistancia, located northeast of 206th Street and 216th and 4th Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Items 8 and 9, ordinances to rezone this property from AG District to DR District and R4 District. Item 10, a resolution to approve the final plat. Item 11, a resolution to approve the subdivision agreement.
Public hearing and vote on items 8, 9, 10, and 11 are today. Proponents, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Brent Beller, 11440 West Center Road, on behalf of the applicant. Here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Items 8 through 11 are approved, 7-0. Items 12 through 17 can be considered together for the View on 39th, located at 3902 Dodge Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 12, an ordinance to rezone this property from R7 District and GC District to TOD2 MX. Item 13, an ordinance to approve a PUR overlay district. Item 14, an ordinance to repeal the ACI2 overlay district. Items 15 and 16, resolutions to approve the preliminary and final plats. Item 17, a resolution to approve the subdivision agreement.
Public hearing and vote on items 12 through 17 are today. Proponents, please.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the council, Larry Jobin, 11440 West Center Road, appearing on behalf of the applicant and the developer. We're here to answer any questions that you might have regarding these items. This, or what's before you today, is consistent with the redevelopment agreement that was passed by this council last Tuesday. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I live not too far from that area, and I often wonder as I drove down Dodge Street that this is right on the hill above the nearby Blackstone area, not too far from one of the bus stops, but there's a lot of historical old big homes there. A couple of vacant lots that maybe need something, yes, but I wonder, with the city's master plan, how long it's going to be before we see TIF come up on this and larger multi-structured, multi-use things in an attempt to attract riders for the new monster buses. That plan doesn't seem to be succeeding very well yet. The most I've ever seen on one of those buses at any one time was 3 or 4 people. Not necessarily students. I guess that's what you're shooting at along Dodge Street, probably, or downtown employees. But haven't had time to look at all the documents related to these 7 or 8 items. But there's not a lot of people living in those areas right now that are going to want to move into that place. So you're wanting to attract somebody. I doubt if it's going to be affordable to hardly anybody. So maybe you need to rethink it. But please don't destruct a lot of nice old buildings that might be refurbished for something to make Omaha once great again. That's what they want to do here. Then let's stop demolishing nice older big buildings. This is maybe a part of the old Gold Coast area, I'm not sure. But the cathedral's not too far from there, and Hamilton Street's not a great deal farther up the street, but a lot of nice homes there. Maybe a few apartment buildings that really don't need to be destructed for something new. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearing's closed. Roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 18, an ordinance to approve a PUR overlay district located at 215 Cedar Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 18 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 18 is approved, 7-0. Item 19, to consider a liquor license addition application for the firefighters Local 3885 located at 6005 Grover Street to add an outdoor area. A's communication from the Planning Department regarding a permit for the outdoor area.
Public hearing and vote on number 19 is today. Proponents, please.
John Glessinger, manager of the Firefighters Hall, 6005 Grover Street.
Thank you. Just here to answer questions, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Harding. Oh, yes.
Yes. So is there, who made the motion?
Do you want to amend?
Want to amend the motion subject to permits?
Subject to permits, amending the motion.
Thank you.
Now roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thanks.
Item 20, to consider a special designated liquor license application for Crescent Moon Ale House located at 3578 Farnham Street for an Oktoberfest event on September 23rd from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. and September 24th from 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. with music until midnight each night.
Public hearing and vote on number 20 is today. Proponents, please.
Yes, Candace Gladwin, 1504 North 113th Plaza, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Amy Kruger, 2727 South 41st Street.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Mr. Begley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Candace, good afternoon. Thanks for coming down today. I want to steal a play from my good friend Councilman Palermo. The floor is yours for a public infomercial for the Great Oktoberfest that I had a blast at last year.
Oh, well, good.
So if you want to just give a brief description of what goes on there, we would love to hear it.
Yeah, it's a 2-day event on 36th and Farnham in our back lot and then a small portion of 36th Street. This will be the 21st annual that we have put on. Personally, my 10th that I have posted and put on myself. But we will have a lot of German beer, probably about 15 different varieties. We have live polka music. We have 2 bands this year, both each night. And yeah, it's usually a really great time.
Well, I appreciate you giving that description, and I can tell you, as an Irishman that loves Irish music on St. Patrick's Day and maybe a few days beyond that, that German music was, I had a blast up there, so
awesome.
I look forward to seeing you guys again and wish you the best of luck.
Awesome,
Thanks
thank you
for
so
coming
much.
down today.
Thanks.
Thanks. And a motion to approve, please. I don't want to forget to do that.
There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 20 is approved, 7-0. Item 21, to consider special designated liquor license applications for Dundee Days on Underwood Avenue from 49th Street to 51st Street on August 20th from 7 a.m. to midnight with music until midnight.
Public hearing and vote on number 21 is today. I'm going to call for proponents. I happen to know that the proponents are on their way down here as we speak, but I did speak with them in advance, and I think we're all familiar with this event. We also have the neighborhood president here in case he wants to address the event. If you want to speak as a proponent, go ahead.
John Ashford, 664 North 56th Street, Omaha, Nebraska. I am the president of the Dundee Memorial Park Association. Dundee Days has been going on since 1992. It used to be days. Now we have consolidated it to one day in recent years. Goes on till 11 o'clock at night with the music. A great lineup again this year. Very well attended, very family friendly. We have a 5K run, the Pancake Man, tons of vendors. We had to turn vendors away this year. A lot of enthusiasm from the community, and we try to do things in a very respectful way to the neighborhood. Lots of volunteers for cleanup, and management has been really great with the secured-in beer tent area, and we just encourage everybody to come out. It's a blast, and as my first year as president of the neighborhood association, we're hoping for it to be a success yet again this year, but we've worked really hard on it.
We're counting on you.
Thank you.
I'll also just mention, I know council members are aware that a couple of applicants here for SDLs had some late issues with their restaurant taxes. That is being addressed. They were informed of that matter, and they have contacted the finance department, so I think that's getting resolved. So having said that, I don't have any qualms about this moving forward here today, even though the proponents aren't here yet. But realizing there could be some opponents, I'll call for any opponents. Hi there. Are you here for Dundee Days?
I am for 21.
Okay, just in time. I'm going to close public hearing, but I'll recognize you. Would you like to speak?
I'm a little out of breath. We're here for Dundee Days.
Okay, your name and address?
My name is Lori Smeichel. My business address is 614 North 50th Street. We want to do our music till midnight. We did it last year. Security said we had no problems. The police said we had no problems. We have a cleanup crew for afterwards. We have limited drinks, so I don't think there should be any problems.
Great. Thank you. I agree. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Mr. President, this is an event I've also gone to from time to time over the years, and I would strongly consider you, I would strongly recommend that you ask the council president to bring his drums up and do a little cameo dance, just for the record. Best of luck to you.
We go on at 4. Is that a motion, Mr. Bagley? All right. then
I'm
I'll sec-
sorry, I'm out of breath.
Then I'll second that. Roll call, please.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 21 is approved.
It's
7-0.
all good. Thank you.
Consent agenda. Any member of the city council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the city council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the city council rules of order.
The public hearing on agenda item number 22 was held on June 28th. We're going to start with that particular item because I think there may be some questions left over from this morning on that topic. And I'll go ahead and recognize Mr. Tyler if he wants to speak to this item or provide us an update.
Jim Tyler, City of Omaha Public Works. We were able to contact the correct person with the company between this morning and the start of this meeting. They're in the process of filling out the CC1 form right now. So it's not complete, but they're in the process of filling out the form right now.
Okay, but we do not have it yet, is that correct?
That is correct. We do not have the form. And he said that there's some information that may be needed till tomorrow to be completed.
Okay. And then we can ask Law the same question, or anyone else, if Mr. Kuhn wants to speak, he may too. But based on that information, this should not be approved today. Would that be the interpretation of the Law Department?
Matt Kuzi, Law Department. Without the CC1, I don't think it's appropriate to move forward with approving this today.
Okay. So, Mr. Tyler, one more question then. Either this gets placed on file or it gets laid over. Your preference?
My preference would be to just lay it over, and I'll just say that, in my opinion, this is no fault of the company. We should have been on this ourselves internally to have this information provided earlier. So I'll put that on our staff here at Public Works and with the city on, we should have been on this earlier because I was able to contact someone over the lunch hour and get this information.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Mr. President. Sorry, I want to catch you before you sat down. So I appreciate the fact that it was postponed. We did discuss it in Public Works Committee today. I'm disappointed that it's on the consent agenda because the consent agenda should be those items with no question marks surrounding them. If we voted on this today, I would clearly vote no. I know law is law here? Yeah, there's law here. Yeah, that was the earlier joke.
Inside joke, yeah.
But this is what we're seeing. We're not getting the information on time. We're not allowed to ask the proper questions. And I did today. I did at 9:30. And then we discussed it again at 10:30. My point being, it should never be on the consent agenda. And I think we heard that the next bidder and even the following bidder also didn't have this form, but honestly, I believe they should all be thrown out. And I'm just gonna say that. If we internally haven't did the work, then we shouldn't be accepting the bids. And if their CC1 was active when they solicited the bid and the bid was approved, well, great. But that's not the end of it. It has to get to the end. And as a broken record again, I would say if we had an electronic bidding system, which we don't, and I know the second bidder, the second lowest bidder is $161,000 away. I wonder if they had a CC1 in place, would we be selecting that bid? And my guess would be yes, bless you. And it's disappointing because this isn't the way things should be presented to us. We should never be discussing these big ticket items on the day of, or especially here at 2 o'clock. This should have been pulled instantly once they knew that CC1 wasn't there. I'm gonna start calling these things out until people start doing their jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Jim, I'll just ask you, So when we discussed this earlier, it's my understanding that at the time of bid submittal, at the time of opening, the CC1 was still active.
At the time that the ordinance or the resolution was signed, or ordinance was signed, okay, the CC1 was current and on file.
Right. And it's only after, it's between that time and before it gets to a vote that it expired and needed to be renewed, correct? Okay.
Yes. And
so we're not giving any, we're not making any accommodations for, to allow for this to proceed, because having a bid that would be deemed non-responsive if the CC1 wasn't active, if you will, at the time of opening of the bid.
you're correct. It was deemed to be a responsive bid, and it had all documents included at the time that the ordinance was prepared for council.
And I don't disagree with what Councilmember Palermo was saying about, you know, we need to make sure that we have those items updated as I mean, someone probably could have been aware that at the time of award, it was still in place, but that the expiration date was coming up on it. So I appreciate you falling on the sword for that. But I wanted to make sure that we're not making any special accommodations for what would be deemed to be a non-responsive bid if there was not a CC1 in place at the time of opening or award.
No, and I'll just say again, you know, the phone calls that I made this over my lunch hour today, they should have happened a month ago, and we should have been making those calls to Clean Harbors that I made. So this should have never been an issue in front of council, and I apologize it got to that point.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
This is just public information that I like to share about the electronic bidding system that I was introduced to as it relates to this body over a year ago, before I became city council. I sat as a constituent in this room, looking at a bid that went on for about 30 minutes to an hour. It was about Blue Cross Blue Shield bid being kicked out because they did not attach a check to their bid. And this body allowed that bid to be kicked out. And we cited that because we didn't have all of our ducks in a row, that the bid was okay to be rejected. And then Councilmember Palermo brought up the electronic bidding system and talked about the value of that bidding system, and yet we still don't have an electronic bidding system. So again, while this application may have had a CC1 when the application or when the bid was submitted, an electronic bidding system would have been able to identify that you have X amount of days before that CC1 would have expired. We would have been alerted of that, and we wouldn't be here today talking about whether we should delay or lay this over or any of those things. And it is not fair for other people that would want to submit a bid and do have a CC1 that is up to date. Should there have been that situation in this bidding process, then what would we have done? So I'm a little bit concerned about us making exceptions to things when it looks like it's favorable to one person or another, when we as the city of Omaha should be doing things fair and equitable across the board. So in this instance, since the bid was submitted with an expiration of the CC1, and good conscience and fairness for me and constituents in Omaha, I won't be voting to lay this over, because this should have been identified and caught at first. And if the electronic bidding process was in place, it would have recognized that the expiration date would have been nearby. Thank you.
If I can make a statement, as I stated in our committee meeting this morning, we're in full agreement that the electronic bidding process should be in place, and the county purchasing department that we bid through has purchased that system, and we would welcome them getting that in place as soon as possible.
Okay, and again, I'm bringing this to the forefront for our community, for the city of Omaha, as it relates to due diligence. Citizens are expecting us to do what we say we're going to do, and in a timely fashion. And it's been over a year and a half that this electronic bidding process should have been put in place, but it isn't. So in the efforts of transparency, I think that all of the city of Omaha needs to know what we're doing and how we're doing it, and at what pace that we're moving to get things done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Tyler, don't go far.
Yep.
Thank you to Councilmember Johnson. I don't get to be the only one up here for years talking about what we're lacking. And I will say, from the clerk's office to council staff's office to probably every director behind me, yourself included, I'd venture to say that everybody knows how important this is. But it's those people not in this room that aren't listening. And what it does ultimately is, if we don't get to accept the low bid because of a form missing, because of what we're lacking, it costs us money. And when we look through the agenda today, we got some great nonprofits coming up before us. This is extra money that if we didn't have to give to the second lowest bid, which we have in the past, we could give more money to the community where it's needed. And that's the point of always trying to get that lowest and best bid, which at this point we're struggling more than we should be for this. So my question to you is, what would you like to do with this item?
What would I like to do with this item? If we
Yes.
could lay it over a week. I'm 2 weeks, sure, 2 weeks. If we could lay this
You'll
over.
be the only one here next week.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll go
2 week layover would, the form's going to be in within the next couple of days. 2 week layover would be more than ample time to provide for the CC1 to be in place prior to the start of the contract on September 1st.
Okay, so you're here, HR&R's here. I'll make a deal with you. If it's not signed, I will make sure that I get 4 of us to deny that contract
Understood.
in front of us.
Yep, understood.
We'll deny it, and we'll make you start over. Because the other part of contracts people don't realize is that we're here to pay bills, we're here to approve contracts. And there's another part of this. This is hazardous household waste. Now, I don't know, I heard that September 1st was the deadline for when this contract would expire, but if it was August 1st, yesterday, or even in a couple weeks, what happens with this stuff? Is the city fined by the federal government? Is there DOT regulations or EPA regulations? I mean, I don't know. I don't know because I can't see it in the contract. I don't see any of that. So that's the other problem, where you hear us say, well, it's not a big deal to lay it over, but it is if contracts expire. Because then what happens if you have the low bid who doesn't get the contract and you go to the second bid, the low bid's going to say, yeah, we'll continue to do it, but guess what? Now you're on emergency cost. And again, we're spending more money as a city. These things are really important to nail down. That's why they're here. That's why we have committees. That's why we have staff. And if we're not going to use these committees and staff to get this information to us to help other departments, then I think overall the whole entire situation is failing. So I'm going to make a motion to lay this over for 2 weeks. Sorry.
As you were speaking, Mr. Espinoza said the CC1 form came in electronically.
Okay, well, if I vote today, I'm voting no. You want me to vote today? Because you had a chance before 2 o'clock to get it on the agenda correctly. Mr. Tyler, do you want me to vote today? I'll vote no. This isn't my fault. And
I
I'm tired of
understand
these
that, sir.
aggressive timelines with things we see in front of us that aren't right. It ain't fair to the people in Omaha. You make a decision. You want me to vote today? I'm voting no. And I encourage all my colleagues to vote no too, because this is not the way we do city business.
We're fine with a 2 week layover because that gives
Good.
us ample time to get the contract in place before the September 1st date.
Good. And maybe it'll be on the agenda correctly.
I'll second.
Motion- Yeah, motion to lay over August 16th.
I'll second that motion. No further lights. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-1.
The public hearings on agenda items number 23 and 24 were held on July 26th. No further lights. Is there a motion? Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
We're going to remove items number 37 and number 39 from the consent agenda, so we'll come back to those here in a minute. So right now, the public hearings on agenda items number 25 through 36 and 38 are today. If you wish to address the City Council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by name, address, and who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent.
Good afternoon, Nicole Ingalls, Planning Department, here as a proponent for agenda item number 35, which is the CDBG CV funds in the amount of $1.5 million to Together for the purchase of a property to operate a non-congregate emergency shelter out of. This has been a long process to get to this contract, but it came out of a very successful non-congregate program last year and is continuing to help serve people who cannot go or are not a good candidate for emergency shelter right now that is a congregate setting so that they can stay safe from COVID-19. It's also a fabulous cooperative effort with a lot of this funding coming from Front Porch and their donors, and we're also working on leveraging that funding further by applying for FEMA funds to reimburse operations. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other testifiers on these items?
My name is Alicia Christensen. I'm here representing Together, 812 South 24th Street, and I am a proponent of agenda item 35. Similarly to what was just said, that I am here to support this $1.5 million grant that Together, in partnership with the City of Omaha, local philanthropic partners, Front Porch Investments, and other area organizations have established this non-congregate temporary emergency housing to address the needs of those 65 and older with medical vulnerabilities who are experiencing homelessness. And we've experienced really fantastic success with the program, so we are excited to continue that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Other testifiers?
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. Now, according to the rules, can I talk about more than one item?
Yes, just tell us which item numbers you're talking to.
I'd like to start off then with, I'm against 30 to 33, 34 to 36, specifically number 35. This doesn't show an address, but if I'm correct, I think it's the old Leavenworth Cafe, which hasn't been vacant all that long and remodeled, rebuilt rather quickly. I believe Together had some offices back behind there, but I think it was awful fast and convenient for them to acquire that building. So I'm against it. 34 to 36. I guess there's grant money involved or federal money involved in 34 and 36 for lead removal. But I look at the price on that and I think, my God, you can build those people a new house for that. Why would you spend money remodeling, removing lead? I guess in the yard and the house probably, but that sounds kind of ridiculous. Why don't we put them up in a new apartment or a new house? Some of these new affordable housing units that we're putting up. So kind of think about the budget. Yeah, you might have to move somebody, but they obviously can't live in it while you're abating the lead. Okay, I guess I have to come back for 37 and 39.
Yes. Any other testifiers on these items? Seeing none, public hearings are closed. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. I just wanted to thank the folks from Together for coming down today and all the work that you do in our community and dealing with homelessness and other issues, hunger, COVID ruined a lot of things for people, and as people get back on their feet, I know this is a good step, and the good work that I've seen you guys do, I appreciate it. So please share that with everybody at Together and give them my best, and thanks for the work you do. Thank you.
Thank you. How about a motion? I'll second. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 37, a resolution to approve the agreement with the African American Empowerment Network, Inc. in the amount of $400,000 for partial funding of its Step Up Omaha Job Training and Work Experience Program.
Public hearing and vote on number 37 is today. I took this one off consent agenda to give the Empowerment Network a chance to come and address this topic and the Step Up partners he has with him here today. Mr. Barney, the floor is yours.
Willie Barney, 2401 Lake Street, Empowerment Network. Just wanted to take a moment. It's been a while since I've had a chance to update the council on Step Up and the work that we're doing. And because it is a 15-year anniversary of this program, I wanted to give you a little bit more of an update and also introduce you to some of the players. So on behalf of the Empowerment Network, the Step Up partners, and many others that have been working for the last 15 years to connect 7,000 youth and young adults in our city to career employment, exploration, internships, and entrepreneurship, we want to say thank you. We have thousands of success stories as you go around the city. Just about everywhere you go, you'll run into a Step Up alumni that was a part of the program. As a matter of fact, back in May, one of our Step Up alumni was recognized by Magic Johnson when he was in the city. He offered the young man a full scholarship to college and also an internship opportunity in LA as he goes on to the second year. Recently, the Omaha World Herald highlighted one of our young people as a part of their program. UNMC started with 4, and they've had as many as 12 interns during the summer. Another one was highlighted on a 3 News story where the young woman is doing research at UNMC and taking that experience and hands-on experience. Also wanted to mention one of our young men that started with us at Step Up at age 14. He was assigned to the Boys and Girls Club for a couple years, came back to Step Up last year as an aviation intern with the police department. That young man is in his junior year at University of Nebraska, Omaha. His story has gone global to the point where the Obama Foundation came in the first part of May to document his story as well. Even today, I've run into parents and others that their kids are participants in Step Up. So I just want to say again, thank you to this council. You've stuck with us, invested in this program, and because of that, we've worked to now expand to a year-round program. This year, we had 190, almost 200 participate in the year-round program. We're working right now to expand that to at least 250 year-round participants. With that, we were challenged a few years ago to continue to increase the diversity of the program as far as our participants and expand more to South Omaha, and with that, hire coaches representing South Omaha and other parts of the neighborhood. So we have done that with the support of the council. I wanted to introduce Ana Torres, who's been with us. She's one of the coaches, year-round coaches. We have Brenda Esqueda, who is also one of our year-round coaches, and we just had CJ Carter, who also joined us. So we now have 5 year-round coaches. So beyond the summer, their job is to keep our youth continued engaged with career opportunities, exploration, and making sure that we have internship and entrepreneurship opportunities for them. So with that, I thank you so much for your support. I ask that you do a vote in favor of this. The pandemic kind of pushed us back a little bit over the last couple years. This has been a rebuilding year as we're placing more and more of our youth on employment opportunities. In 23, 24, we look to expand. We had a year where we had over 700 in the workforce during the summer. The pandemic slowed us down. We're looking to go up to 1,000 eventually. So thank you again for your support. We'd like to pause for a minute and see if there's any. Oh, come on up and say, if you don't mind, have the coaches here.
Please, yeah.
Hello, my name is Brenda Esqueda. I
as mentioned before, am a South Omaha coach. I was just mentioning to Mr. Willie Barney that 3 of our interns in our South Omaha cohort are actually going to be featured on Forbes online for a presentation that they did on several different topics, including possibly a fitness brand. They want to start their own businesses and start their own makeup companies, and as well as start their own movie theaters with different categories. But they presented that and won a competition, will be featured on Forbes. So.
Thank you. And just for the record, can you also provide your address?
Yes, 2503 Pierce Street, Omaha, Nebraska.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for being great partners in this important work and for being here. And it's great to see this finally go year-round like we've been aspiring to for a long time. First, I'll call for other proponents and any opponents, then we'll have probably some questions from council members. Any other proponents to number 37? Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I'm not entirely opposed to assistance for any of the youth. What I am opposed to in this item is the wording. I think it's time to stop using the words like African American. I see we do have mention of South Omaha also, although I didn't hear the word Spanish. But what about the disadvantaged white Anglo-Saxon Protestant youth? I didn't hear anything about them. And is this not a duplication of other efforts by other bodies around Omaha and the state of Nebraska, such as the Job Service, that brand new complex up there in North Omaha by Ames Avenue and south of Ames Avenue and west of the Boulevard? All that is for employment training and special programs for disadvantaged youth. But there are disadvantaged white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, so we probably ought to have another category or strike the words and just make it American Youth Empowerment Network. It's time to stop this creeping into everything we have nowadays of these critical race theory tenets. The words, pitting us against each other. Don't deny it because it's all over the country and everybody writes about it. Thank you.
Any other opponents to number 37? See none, public hearing is closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Barney, if you could come up for a few minutes.
Willie Barney, 2401 Lake Street, Councilwoman.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming today and bringing the coaches. Very impactful in terms of what you do and your business. I did want to bring you up kind of like to showcase, give you an opportunity to explain further what Empowerment Network does for Omaha as a whole in our community. So I had some key questions that I'd like to ask simply because I have no doubt of the impact of work that you do in the community as well as your organization. However, I'm not so sure that from a city perspective that everyone is aware of your contributions. So I do have a few questions if you don't mind indulging.
Absolutely.
How does this, how does the Empowerment Network organization, how does it benefit the community as a whole?
So thank you, first of all, Councilwoman. In May, we celebrated 15 years of work, and much of that work has been done in conjunction with the City of Omaha and others. We started with 3 people, and over the years, well over 500 organizations have partnered with us in various ways. The Step Up program is by far the largest program. As I mentioned, 7,000 youth across the city of all races have had opportunities to get explored, introduced to careers and opportunities, and we have expanded now to where they're learning drones and starting businesses and construction and OSHA certifications. And we have young men and young women that are getting certified in drones at the age of 14, 15, 16 years old. So that is one program. With this council, the North Omaha Village revitalization plan was approved years ago to bring attention back to 24th and Lake with some of your work and other work with OEDC and many other players 24th Street now has a lot more attention than it did 15 years ago. You're seeing millions of dollars now come back into that area. Even as recent as, 3 months ago, the council approved the next plan for that area, Carmen Tapio's development, Fabric Lab, on down the list. There's a lot of development. The Empowerment Network didn't do all of that, but a part of a catalyst to help bring attention to the area. Along with that, health initiatives and others. So I won't go all deep into it, but we are really excited about where we are and the opportunities. The other one I will mention, because again, the city of Omaha, the mayor's office, Mayor Stothert, Chief Smotter, and others working collectively. If you look across the country right now, a lot of the major cities of our size are seeing spikes, all-time highs in homicides and gun violence. Many of them are now coming to Omaha to learn how we have worked together collectively to reduce gun violence. We still have work to do, but there's been a 74% reduction since the time that we started working with the city.
Wow. All right, does the Step Up program participate with any volunteer efforts? And if yes, about how many times a year?
Yeah, so with the pandemic, we backed off some of it, but prior to the pandemic, one of our goals, I like the work that you were doing with the parks. We used to have, on an annual basis with the city, a parks initiative over the holiday, 4th of July holiday. And so the groups would be assigned which park that they would go and help clean up. So we would love to work with you in 2023 and look at how do we bring that back now that we're able to get out more with the pandemic. In addition to that, one of the things that we typically would do is have the youth, as far as Step Up, review the city budget, and a part of their civic engagement responsibility is not to just receive, but to give back. So they give back ideas and recommendations to the city council, to others, as far as improvements they would like to see in their own community, and we always encourage them to be involved civically, voting and everything else.
And lastly, since you are the leader, and very young individuals are very impressionable, I'm going to ask this question. What are some characteristics that you've identified that a good leader would have? Can you name a few of those for me, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I think leading by example, servant leadership, as I mentioned before, giving back, not just being on the receiving end. So I'm encouraged when I see our young people starting businesses, like a young man that you and I had a chance to work with, 17-year-old. His goal is to not only create a business, but hire. So he's created a young man, 17 years old, on Ames Street, has created 15 jobs for other young people in his own community. That is a big part of giving back. I think now, as we focus even more attention on economic development, home ownership, business ownership, to see our young people rise up and give back to their community through entrepreneurship is one of the most rewarding things. So servant leadership, innovation, and creativity is some of the things that we really encourage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and completely, I fully support this initiative, and I'll move to accept this motion.
Thank you for your
Motion to
support.
approve.
Thank you for your support.
Motion and a second. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Barney, and you're right. 9 years we've been working, and I have to say with COVID, I really had missed that getting together every year. I think it was right around December, beginning in December.
Yes.
Are we going to bring that, the group collaborative? I know you've done the Zoom,
Yes.
which is great.
Yep.
But when you do that annual event where all of the different groups who collaborate with the Empowerment Network, and we see the graphs, and we see, where you started, where we are now, and then each year, the different changes. And then it also is, where do we need to focus? Maybe where have some of the stats changed, and we need to turn our focus. And I think we kind of saw that with the South Omaha. Wow, this is working great, kind of on one side of the city. We need to make sure we're trying to expand it. And I don't know that people understand the impact that your group, that the Empowerment Network has had, not just on North Omaha, South Omaha, but collectively for the entire city. And so I really enjoy that annual event when you can see the collaboration amongst everybody. When you look at the successes, maybe look at the weaknesses, and then always try and figure out what can we do better next year, what's been working that we can add to and improve. And I have to say, over the 9 years, nothing less than impressed with everything that you've done, with the challenges you've especially faced the last 2 years but still kept going to make sure that the kids weren't left behind when everything else was shutting down. I know you still did Zoom workshops. There were kids that maybe couldn't get out, but you were still trying to make sure they knew you cared, you were connecting with them so that they had a place and they knew that you cared and you were going to try and help move them forward. And I think that's the most important thing that you've done, especially during the COVID times. This money, in my opinion, is probably one of the biggest investments that we make in our community is with the Step Up program and with the work that you have done. And there's been a direct correlation in crime. So we've reduced the number of victims that we've had. And you literally have made this city a city that other cities look to. For look what Omaha is doing. How do we repeat what they're doing? So I appreciate all the work you've done. I've really enjoyed watching this grow, and I would like to see this program grow. And by the way, I think I've always seen from you, you'll help any kid.
Absolutely.
That needs the help. And that's what I've seen from you and your entire organization. Okay. So I want to thank you, and it's been moved and seconded, but I just wanted you to know how much we appreciate that and how much you benefit the entire city. So.
I don't know what to say.
Thank you.
Councilwoman, I thank you, first of all.
I
You have been
appreciate
with us along the journey, and it's been amazing. We have more work to do, but there are measurable results that we can all look to and keep it moving forward. And to your point, we do. We're looking to continue to expand city. We're already citywide, and there are other cities that are coming to study and learn from what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we going to see in-house with people maybe this year?
Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't answer that
I was
part.
just curious.
Yes. So we did keep it going with the Zoom virtual part, but we are looking to bring back the in-person with the state of Omaha in the partnership with the mayor, city council, and many others. So we will bring that back. And also wanted to just pause for a moment, kind of skipped over this, but we wouldn't be at this point if it wasn't for the mayor's investment, the city council investment, the United Way, the Charles E. Lakin Foundation, others, United Way and others that have stepped in and stepped up to help us expand the program. And the challenge, Councilman Palermo and I were talking earlier, to do more in South Omaha. So we're looking at in 2023, as we now have the ability to go and be more in person, we would like to expand some of the drone programs, some of the robotics, culinary, entrepreneurship, even more so in South, and then also look for, do we have a West Omaha location? Because currently we're in the West Side Boys and Girls Club. It's expanding even more citywide where we have those participants. But thank you so much for your comment and support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Palermo. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Barney, we know scientifically early childhood education is the key. And we also know there's a gap from that point in life until you become an adult. And we know with you as a community partner, we're helping to bridge that gap because you're absolutely right. Our city is a model. And there are groups and organizations like your network that we could give all the money in the world to, and the more we give, we know the more it would help. And when you look at your community partners, I mean, it does equal success with Girls Inc. and PACE and Boys and Girls Club, Hope Center, Heartland Workforce Solutions, OPS, Metropolitan Community College, CSI, UNMC. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but this is really how you change lives. So when you change lives, you change the community. So I applaud you for sticking with it. I mean, you know, COVID was rough, and especially rough when it comes to helping kids that really need it. One thing I want to ask you, though, because I know we spoke about it before, and you're right, I'm always pushing for District 4, South Omaha included. We have problems that we need to address, and we're always working on them. There was a part of this where it was the skilled jobs, training, some of them union jobs, because if you follow along on the agenda, a large part of our agenda is development and building, and that's all within the city of Omaha. And we know we have a large group every single year. Like we have an assembly line with all the high schools we have in the community that cross the stage, and these are kids that we want to make sure we're grabbing hold of to build this community, you know, within our community. So are you still working with that program? So give me a little update on it.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councilman. So let me, and you hit a lot of the partners. I don't think you mentioned the Urban League, which is one of our large partners as well. So, but I appreciate you mentioning them. That was the other comment I wanted to make, as Councilwoman Melton was mentioning it. It's all about partnership. And so from the school district to MCC to all the people that you mentioned, the coaches, the partners, I want to specifically mention the work of Monique Cannon before she went on to one of our other employment partners. And now John Jackson is our new director, and then the Step Up coaches behind me and 40 other coaches that are around. They're the ones that make that difference. And yes, absolutely. As you challenged us a few years ago, we were starting to already get into some of the trade work, but now working with MCC, we've expanded that where our young people are getting applied technology, they're getting construction, OSHA certifications, and other work that they're getting exposed to. So last year we had a little bit more of an expansive program, but again, with COVID, we're making that transition. So I believe next year we'll be able to expand the trades even more, anywhere from health to criminal justice work. But this year they did robotics, applied technology, drones, and construction with MCC.
Yeah, appreciate that. The money's in the construction. College these days don't always equal success. And the one thing we have in Omaha over others is a lot of construction. So keep pushing that. Totally in support of what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No further lights. There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 37 is approved, 7-0. Item 39, a resolution that the City of Omaha engage the National League of Cities Race Equity and Leadership Team pursuant to the agreement for consultant services in an amount up to $131,725.
Public hearing and vote on number 39 is today. We've asked Keith Station from the mayor's office to come down and give a brief presentation on this item, and I know we have the city's internal diversity committee here with us today too.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the City Council, good afternoon. Keith Station, Mayor's Office, Deputy Chief of Staff, 1819 Farnham. Happy to stand before you today. I'm joined by the Chair of the Mayor's City Employee Diversity and Inclusion Group, Christian Espinosa, as well as the Vice Chair, Bridget Hadley, and our Secretary, Sarah Laratoni, your Secretary also, and also members of our board. I get the pleasure of being able to be immersed in the work all day, every day, and some of our committee members don't as often, but their contributions are invaluable, and we appreciate it very much. So thank you to my fellow board members. I'd like to thank Mayor Stothert for creating this special leadership platform for us. This work is supported by her and certainly by you all. I appreciated your time to hear about this initiative with the National League of Cities and to discover and explore what we can do together. I'd also like to thank all the city department directors for their support. They've all agreed to join us in this work, and it's necessary and needed. Diversity and inclusion experts say that you won't be effective if you don't have buy-in from the top, and we certainly have that from the mayor and from our department directors, and we appreciate that. Diversity and inclusion should be a business imperative, and it's also the right thing to do. And the good news is that we don't have to choose, we can do both, and we should, and we must. The city's mission, the City of Omaha's mission, is to provide quality service and leadership that maximizes resources and responds to our community's present and future needs. And this work will help us to do that, day in and day out. During the course of this last year, we've done a few things. We've signed on to support the Greater Omaha Chamber's Code Initiative, CEO Pledge, and Employer Coalition. We've surveyed city employees to gauge their interest and gain feedback regarding the development of employee resource groups, or ERGs. We've completed training courses together, such as the Racial Equity Institute Phase 1 training. We've collaborated with Douglas County in some of the juvenile justice work, health equity initiatives, and with my counterpart, Marissa Hatab, at Douglas County. Marissa and I have contemplated that, given the county's number of employees and the city's number of employees, we stand to affect some 5,000 plus people that work in the public sector in the interest of expanding diversity and inclusion in this community. There are 6 of the many boards and commissions that touch diversity, equity, and inclusion. There is this board, the Mayor's Diversity, Equity, City Employee Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Board. There's the Mayor's Community Member Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Board. There's the Mayor's LGBTQ+ Advisory Board, the Mayor's Native American Advisory Board, and the Mayor's Commission for Citizens with Disabilities. Also, the city's Human Rights and Relations Board of Directors. We've worked across these groups to create more strategic alignment, to deduplicate some of the work that can be done and work better together. These efforts have really worked to lay the foundation to prepare us to move into this partnership with the National League of Cities. The National League of Cities Race, Equity, and Leadership Department works to strengthen local leaders' knowledge and capacity in the areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they do this in a unique way for city governments and municipalities. So what we will receive is consulting, technical assistance, and training. And I want to take a second to point something out. So while racial equity is centered in the work, it's important to note that we chose their scope of services because it's so comprehensive. It won't just be about race. It'll also address ability and age, gender identity, and the intersections of all those things. We want to build that into the culture of how we do business in the city. And so I want to be clear there. The training that they will offer will help us to build on the great work that our partners at Inclusive Communities have done with the fire department, with the Omaha Fire Department. They've worked with the fire service to customize a fire service specific curriculum and training for all firefighters and leadership. And we look forward to continuing to work with them should you approve this agreement. Now you're probably thinking, Keith, this sounds good, but how will we know when it takes, if the work has been effective? And to that, I'll say we'll know when our surveys and assessment results help us to generate a useful feedback loop for directors and managers about the needs of city employees. We'll know when we have successfully stood up more employee resource groups that promote belonging and allyship for marginalized groups in the city, in the city's workforce, and in the community. We'll know when our hiring trends begin to skew toward reflecting citywide population parity. Right now they don't, and that's difficult to do, but we can work incrementally to make sure that we do that. We'll know when individuals leave employment at the city that when they cite reasons that they had an offer they couldn't refuse. I'm looking at my colleague, Troy Anderson, who has days left. That'll be the reason versus that they felt that they could not thrive working for a manager or working on a team or in a role they were in. And we'll know that we made a difference when we have a more inclusive process for promoting and onboarding people onto the many city boards and commissions that exist. And so we'll do work there. This partnership with the NLC, with the National League of Cities, will allow us to invest in our workforce and provide them with the tools needed to do what we've asked of them. And again, our mission statement that we ask of all city employees is to respond to our community's present and future needs. This work will help us to do that, to equip city employees to do that. And the partnership will help us to do it at scale for the 3,300 plus city employees. And to put it into perspective, the amount that we're seeking approval for today averages to be about $39 or $40 per employee. And certainly our workforce is worth that, such an investment. So as I prepare to step aside for some brief remarks from our chair and vice chair, I'd like to take a second to thank the people and organizations that have lent their support, that have been proponents and have cheered us on. They've invited us to share space and to collaborate internally as well as externally into the community. We can't thank you enough. Your support means everything. I'll turn it over to Christian, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Christian.
Christian Espinosa, Human Rights and Relations. I would like to, first of all, to thank the mayor for her efforts to make this possible. And I also want to thank the city council members for your support in this endeavor. I highly appreciate your support. I also want to thank every member of the Mayor Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Advisory Board that are here present today. Without them, this is not going to be possible. We've been working very hard for the last 2 years to have something substantial for the mayor and for the city council. I would like to emphasize something. This training is a very good tool to address inequity and to assess where we are and how can we move forward from now. In addition to that, this tool will help the city to recruit more diverse workforce, something that we need and it's something that we should be forward on that. Although this training is meant for city employees mostly, we are thinking and encouraging our community to be part of this training. We want the community to know what we are doing and how we're changing this process and the process in the city. And this is the only thing I have to say. I want to thank again for your support. And now I'll pass the word to Bridget.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Bridget Hadley, City Planning. I also want to thank the mayor and you, the City Council, for supporting our efforts and vision of the employees, through this board and the opportunity to address real issues that face our country, the state, and the city. This contract will allow the City of Omaha to embark upon this journey for a better and more inclusive workforce. I am pleased to be a part of a phenomenal group of employee board members who said when we first met that they did not want to be a part of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, seen and experienced in the past. Instead, they wanted to be a part of transforming the culture of our city government. And we are on that journey. I too want to echo Christian's statements and commend our board members for some phenomenal work. We've had lots of great discussions, learned a lot together, and are linking arms to help move this city forward. So I kudos to our board and board members. It is important that all levels of the City of Omaha workforce represent the community it serves so that we deliver public services in a manner reflective of its community. This contract sets the stage for an exciting and dynamic workplace that will retain and attract the best talent. So thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents on number 39 that want to speak today?
Sorry, Sarah Laura Tony, City Council, Secretary to City Council. I like to secretary, apparently. Anyway, so as my colleagues said before me, I would also like to thank the mayor, all of you for taking the time to review and go over this opportunity for us, as well as my fellow board members. It's been incredibly exciting to be a part of this board for the last 2 years, and I would like to thank both of the directors that I've had in that time for allowing me to be a part of it, as well as all the other city directors for allowing your employees to be a part of it as well. It's been great getting to know everyone, and I know all of us are so excited to be able to be at this point now of presenting this to you and being in front of you after working for 2 years to create a mission, a vision, a strategic plan, set goals for ourselves, get our committees up and running. As Bridget said, we are working to transform the City of Omaha from the inside out to be representative of our community. Omaha is not my native city, but working with this board, I'm proud to call it my home. I think we all spend enough time at work and we want to feel welcomed and accepted in our workplace and know that our workplace values who we are and is also representative of who we are. And this board is working to do that. We are working to truly become representatives of the diverse community that constitutes this great city. And I would just like to add that making strides to become more inclusive and to become equitable does not mean that we are taking opportunities away from other people. Adding chairs at the table or seats at the table, to use that metaphor, does not mean that someone else gets kicked out of the table. It just means that we are building a bigger table to make sure that everyone has a seat and has a role to play, and can go forward and say that they're proud to work for this city, as we all are proud. So thank you guys so much. We really appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you. Any other proponents today that want to speak?
Willie Barney, 2401 Lake Street. I just wanted to stand in support of the work that is going on with this committee under the leadership of Keith Station. We have, over the last few years, convened about 80 diversity, equity, inclusion leaders around the city, and Keith has been one of the main players. So as Councilwoman was asking me earlier about leadership and servant leadership, the City of Omaha has the opportunity to lead by example when it comes to this, so I'm really encouraged by the work that I've seen. And the other part of it is what was just stated, this is a win-win situation where people of all races and ethnicities can win with this and will win with this. There was a study conducted about 4 years ago that said when we reach true equity in this city, it will add over $4 billion of economic activity. Everybody wins when there's more economic activity. So just wanted to stand in support of the work that they're doing with this agreement.
Thank you. Other proponents?
John Ashford, 664 North 56th Street. I've been on the board for a couple of years now, and I told my fellow board members at our first hearing if this was just another board where we're going to have a survey and, you know, make each other feel good and be done with it, I want to know part of it. But I can tell you every month we have incredibly real, difficult conversations with one of the most dynamic and amazing group of people I've ever worked with. The board before you today and our members that couldn't be here. And just like Mr. Barney and his Step Up program, which is incredible, we do that with the city prosecutor's office, and the kids we've had come through there are inspirational. That program works, and it's one of the best programs our city has. This is going to work too. Mr. Station, who I actually went to high school with over 20 years ago, and he came back, and he's nice enough to lead our department now, is an inspirational leader, and he is dead set on transforming the culture, and he's going to. And the National League of Cities and the contract that you're voting on, they have a process that has worked much in the way that Mr. Barney has the Step Up program, and he has documented to Councilwoman Melton and everybody else, hey, this is what we have. These are the goals we set. This is how we do it. This works. This is the same thing. This is going to work. This is going to be a place that's going to be dynamic. It's a place that people are going to want to be, and I do think it's going to be transformative. I'm excited for us to get started on the work, and I ask that this council vote in favor of this appropriation.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Donnie Johnson, 4928 North 52nd Street, the Johnson Equestrian Foundation, and North Omaha Concerns Citizen Foundation. I'm not really here to oppose these young folks in their program, and Mrs. Hadley program in the planning department, but my biggest problem with some of them is that they're not including the Peace Corps. For instance, we're so far behind here. When all those Red Angus the state of Nebraska, as a member of the Omaha Chamber of Commerce, the first thing they do is take you to the Blackstone Hotel and give you an Angus rare steak. So we're still trying to figure out if we send some folks over into where Western Nebraska took all those cows before we put our Red Angus steak into our Italiano pasta, we didn't even get to sample it.
So, Mr. Johnson, this is about a consulting contract.
Yeah,
with
yeah,
League
yeah,
of
I
Cities,
understand.
right?
I'll
Okay.
get to your point, Mr. Frederickson.
I hope so.
And here's the problem. As these programs that we're looking at, we want the Peace Corps to be involved with all these other programs that you're introducing. I've asked the planning department, for instance, when I was at the United Nations and become a member of the United States Senate Chamber of Commerce, they take you to the Waldorf Astoria just before you go into the Security Council and give you this silver 100% dome with Peking duck. So look here, dude. That's how far behind they are. So have you been to the Waldorf in New York, in Manhattan?
I got to encourage you to talk to your marks about the National League of Cities contract we're talking about.
Well, if you're going to get these young folks a contract, our citizens, when President Bush said no child left behind, we're working on programs very much similar. We're sending young folks to Europe, white folks, young white folks. We're sending the folks from South Omaha, Hispanic, into North Africa. We're sending African Americans into West Africa to study down in South Africa. For instance, that type of revenue would help us in North Omaha. Those type of jobs. These jobs they have are for the future, for instance. It took me 2 years to get my daughter into Harvard, but she decided to go to KU.
All right, I just have to ask you to summarize to this contract to agenda item number 39, right?
If you're going to pass it, would you ask Mr. Hadley in the planning department to include the Peace Corps, and we'll start getting to some money in North Omaha? Because right now, all the money in North Omaha is dead.
Okay, thank you. Any other opponents to number 39?
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. I think we've all forgotten one word: sovereignty. This National League of Cities, Race, Equity, and Leadership is not sovereign. and neither is the mayor, and neither are you. We, the people, are. Under our Constitution, our republic, and the state constitution, we are the sovereigns. We are the electors under our state constitution. This is going outside of we, the people, to get ideas and give money to somebody else. Why don't you pay us, the taxpayers, the $131,725, and let us have a big public hearing where everybody can talk? We are your consultants, not the National League of Cities, Race, Equity, and Leadership, or REAL, to make it easy for people to repeat. It goes along again with, excuse me, but the critical race theory. Use words against each other. It's a national problem, and it needs to be talked about. I was sitting in my church on Sunday, and I had some message that, gee, what I'm hearing sounds like what I sometimes hear, or I should be saying, at the City Council and Douglas County Board meeting, that they're not sovereign, we are. What I was hearing was talking about the parable of the owner of the vineyard. Basically, short version is, under God or under our Constitution, we are all equal. There's the equality clause. The state constitution says that. So you people need to honor those laws first of all. Not somebody's up there in Canada or whatever these people are. They do not answer to you. You do not answer to them. You answer to us. And I hope that in this election year, a lot of you will be deposed because you're not honoring your oaths of office, as there are many other politicians that are not. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents to number 39? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Station.
Chief Station, Mayor's Office, 1894.
Thank you. I just want to applaud you on your efforts to make a fair and equitable city, a fair and equitable place here in city government as we work together collectively to accomplish big things with the overall arching factor of making a better Omaha. And I have no doubt that being fair and inclusive is some of those key fundamental things that's going to make that happen. But there are some individuals that would agree with me that the city of Omaha needs to embrace differences as opposed to rejecting them. I'm going to say this again because it resonates. The city of Omaha needs to embrace differences as opposed to rejecting them. Why do we say that? We say that because we all are different. We all have different ways of thinking. We all have ways of doing business. But if the mainstream, the main folks, the lead folks, the main players have one way of doing business and never have any ideas about inclusion, maybe people with differences could bring something different to the table. Maybe the way that current leadership leads, they could offer something that would fix a problem simply because they heard that person out, that person with that different opinion. If they were open-minded, able to listen, and look at something from a different viewpoint, a different lens, such diversity brings that to us. That's why this nation and other people throughout the nation are all wanting to include people from different backgrounds because they understand the value of having differences. They understand what having someone of a Latino background, someone of a European background, and someone of an African background, what that might bring to the table when we're looking at solving problems such as citywide problems. So this program is very unique in its sense that it's being introduced to the city of Omaha, but we look at corporate 500 companies throughout that have already embraced this. And they're making a huge difference within their organization. So yes, I'm not clueless about the impact of what this brings to the table, but I do, as well as other members of the Omaha community, we do have some important questions here as we decide on or look for clarity as we define next steps. So I asked today, how did you choose your chair, your current body? You brought to us today a group of people on a committee. How were they selected? Can you tell me how they were selected in the various roles? We have a chair, a co-chair, and a secretary.
Sure.
How were they selected?
So, well, first, thank you, Councilmember, for that question. Our approach to this work is that inclusion means all. Inclusion means everyone. And so as we work to expand a culture of inclusion throughout the city, across all departments, in all ways, you'll see that, to your point, that decisions and involvement by many parties and many people in the city will be necessary to make sure that this work does take. So to answer your second question, the officers were elected when the members of the board were appointed by the mayor. There was an application process. The individuals were appointed, and then as a group, we decided to elect, to nominate, have a nomination process, and to elect the chair, vice chair, and secretary.
So all the members of your team were appointed by the mayor.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, Councilmember.
And then within that team, you decided on what positions they would hold.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, this article that we have before us, it talks about NLC Real. Who is that?
Sure. So the National League of Cities is the parent company, if you will, and the Real team, the Race, Equity, and Leadership, is a division, a department within the National League of Cities that conducts the diversity, equity, inclusion work for municipalities. So they are the branch of the NLC that will oversee this training that they will help us to create. In the way, the way they offer the training, it's not a one-size-fit-all type situation. It's they consult with us. They help to pull out from this body and from you all eventually too what's important to us, what are our values, and how do we live those and through our work. And so they help us through somewhat of a facilitated process to develop that. So REAL is an extension off of the National League of Cities, the larger organization.
So you hope to expect that this company will give you the tools that's necessary, your team, the tools that's necessary to create values and core positions of where the city should look at as it relates to doing business. Is that correct?
Yes, Councilmember, they'll help us to get there. Yes, that's correct.
All right, then my last question is, how will the racial equity core team be determined?
So that's up to us, really, and we've had several meetings with the Real team leadership to discuss how those come about in ways that they've been developed in other cities. And actually we have the current iteration of this board is really close to what a core equity team should look like. So right now, the preliminary core equity team is this group behind me, and then we have an option to invite other stakeholders to be a part of that. And we'd like other city leaders and even perhaps some of you to be a part of that larger core equity team.
So how would one apply, or how would one be identified to be a part of this equity core team?
Sure. Thank you for that question. Actually, that's to be determined. We'll right now, again, the first iteration of it is this group, and as we commence on the work, we will take a look at what's missing in terms of departmental representation, skill sets, interests, people's time and availability, and then we'll look to see how to issue a call out for additional members of the core equity team.
So will this equity core team be determined? Is there a possibility that this equity core team will be determined based upon an appointment?
You said an appointment?
Uh-huh.
Again, I would say that's probably to be determined. The core equity team, again, as it currently exists, is comprised of the appointed members of this board. But as we expand the core equity team, unless they were to become a member of the board, which isn't necessarily necessary to be a part of the core equity team, until they would become a member of the board, they would need to be appointed. I think that we would probably reserve the right, the leadership in the board would reserve the right to invite members onto the core equity team, again, with a consultation from the NLC.
So it would sound to me that our next step would be after getting some consulting, that we would then move into the space of determining this equity core team. And so I guess I would like to know, when do you anticipate determining, A, how that team is going to be made up of, and when it will be complete?
Well, thank you for that question, Councilmember. That is one of the early steps we really need to address is developing your core equity team. And so that'll be among the first things we address when we start the work officially, when the contract is executed. So you can anticipate that as soon as late summer, early fall, that we'll take a look at what's missing from the core equity team, and which directions and what ways we expand it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Station. And I want to say that I didn't know all the members of this board, but impressive board, because, and again, it's a board made up of employees of this city of Omaha, because your mission for this is for Omaha employees, for the city of Omaha, not the city as a whole, but the city employees, correct?
Thank you for that question.
Directors, recruiting for employment. I mean, so that's why this particular board is made up of employees of the city.
Initially, yes. It'll be focused internally.
And so what the Nebraska League of Cities has done, and just what I want to be clear of, is there's been some accusations that basically this is Keith Station's way of forcing every employee to have CRT training, and you're going to be told by Keith how to think. So that's, I'm just putting it right out there, because there was an objector that basically said that. So how do you want to respond in letting us know what this actually is, so that people understand that the National League of Cities basically has consulting, but they consult with you to try and help you build kind of an diverse and equitable city, but it's based upon your individual cities. Based upon the dynamics that each individual city has. Because what's good in Omaha may be completely different than what's good in Portland or somewhere on the East Coast. So can you just give us a little more information as to what this is? Because what I heard is everybody's told you need to recruit diversity, we need more diversity, you need to make sure everything's equitable and everybody feels inclusive, but then there's no direction on kind of how to do that. So maybe you have directors that are really busy trying to make sure our parks get mowed and, our potholes get filled, and then you're telling them, oh, by the way, figure this out on your own too, how you're going to recruit everybody. So tell me how this is going to help you, and give us a little more detail as to what the consultant for the National League of Cities is going to do, and why you chose the National League of Cities as maybe the consultant to help you do this.
Sure. Well, thank you for that question, Councilmember. So a lot there. So thank you for stating it that way. I would say that this certainly isn't Keith Station's idea necessarily, even though I support it wholeheartedly. We've jointly come up with some strategic initiatives to address even before we have decided to hire and consult with the NLC. And that was developed with my colleagues behind me. We appreciated the NLC's approach because they don't have a one-size-fit-all approach. They don't hand you a playbook and say, do these things, and this will solve all of your diversity, equity, inclusion, ills or opportunities. Again, they consult with you to really understand your value system as a corporate or municipal corporation. They interview stakeholders from your community. They interview and speak with elected officials, and they draw on the experience that they have working with other communities and the research that they've generated. And so it fits so well with the direction that this board was heading, because we were thinking about the scale of being able to deliver on the mayor's commitment to the community. She said that all city employees would receive anti-bias or diversity and inclusion training. And so we want to make good on the mayor's commitment to the city of Omaha employees as well as to the community in doing that. So we're thinking about the scale, again, the 3,300 plus full and part-time employees at the city. We're thinking about, again, lessons and some of the intelligence we have from Inclusive Communities, our partner, again, doing the training with the fire department. We're thinking about some of the things that they observed and learned, and we're taking all those things into consideration. And so we sought counsel and technical assistance from an experienced organization, reputable, experienced organization who does this for cities. They've given us some reference from other communities to talk to.
Well, and you just led me to my very next question, actually. It's, have you talked to any other cities that have used the REAL program, and what were those cities? What did they get out of it, and what did, I guess, did you get recommendations from other cities that have used it?
Yes, I was able to speak with 3 communities. In each case, it was a city manager or my counterpart at the cities. I spoke with assistant city manager from State College, Pennsylvania, Arlington, Massachusetts, which is in the greater Boston area, and Dayton, Ohio, moving toward the Midwest, to just understand why the work was valuable, what they got from it, and to a person, they all mentioned that the partnership with the NLC and with the REAL team was helpful to really lay the foundation for addressing some of the issues that are sort of difficult to talk about, or that are unprecedented in terms of cities as organizations addressing racial equity work and diversity and inclusion. And they were all proponents of working with the NLC and gave useful feedback to why we should consider it. That was helpful as well. And we also, I'll say that our partners at Inclusive Communities, they even suggested that at the scale that we need to train all of our city employees, you should consider working with an NLC kind of organization who can help you to utilize our core equity team to offer training. We also have a precedent with our Human Resources Department in rolling out modules and training for all city employees. So with the resources and the infrastructure, if you will, that we already have, when it comes to offering training and resources for all city employees, coupled with the assistance that NLC will give us, we feel confident that we can, again, create and expand a culture of inclusion that reflects the values of the city of Omaha.
And I just want to go, so we really could have 2 choices. We could just go buy some training videos somewhere that then HR just says, everybody has to sit down and watch this video because you're an employee, and we're probably going to spend $150,000 on the training materials, right? And then you just say it's one size fits all. Every employee in Chicago and Miami and Omaha, we're all going to watch the exact same video, and then we can pat ourselves on the back and we can say we've done diversity and equity training. Or we can hire a consultant that's going to work specifically with you, with other employees, with this board, with another core board, and try and come up with something that's meaningful, that fits our community, that fits our needs, and it may even be somewhat different department by department. I mean, if you have, Mr. Kuzi trying to recruit for city prosecutor's office, it may be a little different than when we're trying to recruit for the police department or when we're trying to recruit for public works. So I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I'm hearing is this is going to give you the ability to work with other stakeholders and people in our city to try and create not just training, but kind of a all-inclusive plan that will work for the city of Omaha and our different departments, as opposed to just go grab some one-size-fits-all and force it onto everybody. And as we know, probably HR knows, that doesn't always give you the benefit that you want. And I would have to say, I think that the National League of Cities has probably come a long way in being a little more inclusive too, because they never used to include a certain other party in their mix. And they actually accepted me to be on their public safety committee, even though I checked that box that said I was a Republican. So I want to say that I think the National League of Cities is living their own equity and diversity, because they're also trying to reach out and they want to hear from people with different perspectives all over the country. And I've actually been very impressed with the work that the National League of Cities has done in that regard. So what is working in other communities? And they want to hear from me. What is working in Omaha? How are you bringing your crime rate down? How do you have the clearance rate for your cases so high in compared to other areas? You know, and so how is what you're doing could be something that we could fit in, you know, and that's when, you know, then you go, well, we have the Empowerment Network as well. And see how we have all of these things that collaborate in the city of Omaha. So what I think you're doing by using this consultant is you found a way to collaborate with everybody to try and come up with a diversity and inclusion program that fits our city and that actually does address individuals and individual needs, as opposed to a one-size-fits-all that we would just force everybody to do. And I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth, but that's what I see this consulting contract doing for us.
I think that's an excellent way to frame it, and that's consistent with the feedback that we got from the references about how you can use the NLC. Again, whether you're starting from scratch and you are just putting your toe into the work, or if you are a year and a half or so into the work as we are, and determining what training and technical assistance should look like for your city.
Okay.
That's a great example. Thank you for that.
And that's what I think what it was, is I think people didn't have enough information as to necessarily what this is. So then they're of course going to use stereotypes and accuse this as being something that it's not. And I just wanted you to make sure you addressed what this actually is and why we're doing it. And then the group that you have that helped select this, a very good, diverse group for the city of Omaha, and in all honesty, very impressed with this board. And I know every single one of you, actually. And I can tell you that I have a lot of faith in your recommendations, because I know how much you care about the city of Omaha. And I guess you have a board that's made up of very dedicated city employees. And so that's where, for me, I'm going to go ahead and take your recommendation and the board's recommendation, because you've spent a long time looking into this, and I think that you've thought about what we need and have really good intentions. And so I guess I'm going to go ahead and support this based upon your recommendation and the recommendation of everybody on your board.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we have. This is a distinguished group, and we are missing some members not present today. But this is an exceptional group, and as are the members of the community member DEI board, and as are some of the other boards and commissions. But this group has really led the charge to really dig into why this program will be useful for us.
And all I would ask from you is, if you would, I mean, you're going to need some time to get this started and meet with the consultant, but I would really appreciate it if, you know, once this starts 3-4 months from now, what I would really like is just kind of an update.
Sure.
This is what we've done. This is what we've been happy with. This is what we've kind of asked him to do. So I would just appreciate just some updates if you could, and, you know,
happy to.
Lunchtime, a Tuesday morning, or something like that. I would just like to see the progress. And then, is it what you thought it was? How is it going? So,
thank you. Count on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I'll apologize. I'm going to sound like our vice president, and I don't mean Councilmember Palermo here for a minute, because when Keith and I talked a little earlier, this is kind of how I said it. So I'll let you kind of explain it from here. So the $130,000 will train the trainers, who will then train the city employees. How will the trainers then train the employees?
So,
and I'm wearing a blue suit too.
So the full cost is not allocated completely to the trainer portion. There are some other things that the $131,000 gets us, but that portion is really significant. The train the trainer piece, and the train the trainer concept is meant to allow us to have this work be sustainable. So in a way that outlives us all in our elected, appointed roles on this board, and also even our perhaps our tenure in our day jobs at the city. And so the ideal way that it will work is that we have a cohort of trained trainers that facilitate the mass training to all city employees. We'll do it in phases. We'll utilize technology for city employees where that's possible. We'll do it in person workshops and conversations. There will be some video aspects of it. There will be some virtual meetings. So we will have trained trainers, and we will generate, I guess, a faculty, for lack of a better way of putting it, of people that can offer the training. And we also reserve the right to allow it to evolve as we learn more, as we build more sections, as we think through how do new city employees need to receive training versus seasoned city employees. All of those things are things that we'll consider, and it'll vary in how we roll it out, and some of that is still to be determined.
I'm glad you touched on something I was going to get to later, but I'll pick it up now. Is that I think you have to remain flexible and be able to make changes to it as you see as you evolve through this process. I think that's important too.
Right.
So, and I asked you earlier, I think this morning when you and I talked a little bit about this, is after the first year, after this initial investment of $130,000, are there annual costs that would be anticipated after that with NLC, or how would this be a program that would be, I guess, continued through funding through the general budget, or would we still have consulting services needed as we go forward?
Thank you for that question. So this allocation is just for a 12-month term, so for 1 year. And if we decided to, at a future date, continue to utilize the services of the NLC or to sign on for another year, it'll be on a year-by-year basis. This won't be a multi-year contract. Even though the work will spill into the next calendar year, this is a 2022 budget allocation.
Yeah.
And so we will examine that, but for now, this is a 1-year partnership. And again, we are really locked in on making sure we maximize a sustainable way of utilizing the services of NLC. We are thinking about how to make sure this isn't a 1-year partnership and then it all goes away and we are back to where we started.
Okay, so when this showed up when the agenda came out last Thursday, I too I wasn't aware of REAL at the time. I wasn't aware of the city, having a proposed consulting agreement through NLC for REAL. So I had a lot of questions about it too. So and that's, I think, why we're here today too. And taking it off of the consent agenda, I think was really important to do, because as Councilmember Melton said, and I think, I can't remember now if it was Christian or Bridget, I think the initial reaction, some people thought, oh, this is just CRT, this is DEI, but I heard both, again, I don't know if it was Christian or Bridget saying, this isn't another DEI program. So if you could maybe explain why this is different than something like that, because I think that was an initial reaction of some of the people I heard from.
Sure. Thank you for that question. Well, this strategic partnership with the NLC will allow us to dig into understanding the business case for diversity and inclusion work for an organization like ours, and also it'll help to uplift the values case. And the reason why earlier I said we don't have to choose and we need to do both is because that's what the experts say. We don't have to think of it as a pie, that the more we focus on the business case, the data says that people that work for more diverse organizations, the organization is more profitable. And that's great, but we don't have a profit motive in that same way. And also the thought could be that if you focus too much on the environment and the atmosphere and infusing that with harmony and culture building, then perhaps you would slip on the operational side of the house. And we argue that we do both and you do both together. You don't have to decide or cut the pie a different way. We want to understand and expand the business case for making sure the city is more inclusive in the way we do business, and also do it for the reasons that make people want to stay and come work for us and appreciate and understand our employment brand and are retained and can thrive and are more upwardly mobile. And we want to make sure people feel a sense of belonging and there's interdepartmental connections. So it's different because it is on purpose. And it's different because we will articulate the things that, again, reflect our values and our mission and our vision as a city. This won't be a severe departure from our core values and our mission. It'll just accentuate them and really create a foundation for pointing to who we are. And this work will always make sure to reflect who we are and not create a new city or a new brand. It'll really just accentuate our brand and promote it and be explicit about what we stand for, and hopefully be appealing to employees to come work for the city.
I think that's an important point too, and as it relates to working with a consultant rather than as what Councilmember Melton talked about, a cut and paste or just the same program across cities, is that when we're working with the consultants, they may find aspects of what we currently do that are already additive and not necessarily something that has to be reintroduced for the program that's going to be tailored to our needs.
We think so. We hope so. Now I want to be clear that I'm sure that they will make some suggestions or point out some findings that show us that we have room to improve. And in some ways we've determined that. But to your point, they'll also probably say, if this is important to the city of Omaha, this is great. Do more of this. Do more of the good stuff. And if you do that, then you'll achieve your desired results.
And again, I think that's with the recommendation with you and your committee to go this route with using consulting services rather than just buying a program, I think is worth the investment. And I'll be encouraged to see the results. And if hopefully they're additive. But if they're not, I think we need to find a different direction. So I think we need to be self-critical in our analysis as we go through this.
Fair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bagley. You're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Keith, appreciate your work on this. You and I have conversations from time to time related to this, and my colleagues covered a lot of ground that I want to talk about, so I'll just say that I think it's important that we measure and we show results. And when we go forward with this, if it's approved here today, Councilmember Harding and Melton, they made good points on, I'm surmising, I guess, for you, that let's measure this. So I think you get down to the important work of I like the folks you have on your committee. I know you have the passion and the effort here, so I will look forward if we can get quarterly reports, or like Councilmember Melton said, shoot by the office one morning and just have a chat with us. You can schedule with me, that anytime. So I will look forward to those conversations and having you just give us an update on the work that you're about to do if this is approved here today, and I'll look forward to that. So
we'd love to.
And thanks to the team you got as well, because I'm not an overly huge consultant kind of a guy, but in this case, for the reasons that we discussed here today, I think it's something we need to do. And again, we'll measure it, and then as Councilmember Harding said at the end, if we can show results that are measurable, then we can look forward in the future to maybe applying it some more. Otherwise, we'll have to go a different direction. So, thanks.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. You're recognized.
Thank you. Thanks, Keith. All of us up here know that critical race theory, CRT, elicits an emotional response from just about everybody in our community. And I just want to take a minute and thank you for the way you explained how this program is going to work for the city and how it's going to work for us. And I know we're going to be intimately involved in it as well. The only question I had was, did you investigate, and you may have said this and I might have missed it, but did you investigate other consultants that provide similar type services?
We did. We looked at individuals as well as other organizations, and again, it really came down to the scale for which we need to offer training and really consult with the complexity of the various city departments. It really made a lot of sense to work with an organization that does it for cities. There are lots of people locally and beyond, really good people, reputable organizations, smart folks, and perhaps we will have a chance to collaborate with them as we localize some of our work and down the line. In fact, we already have to a certain degree. We do. You heard Mr. Barney mention before. There's a lot of collaboration amongst diversity and inclusion professionals in the community, and they all share. They're all great. They all support one another and want each other. It's not competitive at all. They want my colleagues and I guess peers in other organizations want us to be successful, and vice versa.
I too want to echo what Amy said, and really do appreciate the team that you put together and the conversations that we've had over the last year, really kind of leading up to this point. And so I just want to say thank you for your approach, and thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thanks, sir. We appreciate you. Thank you.
So in one sense, this could be a unanimous vote, and I hope it is unanimous. I'm just going to call for the vote, but I do want to thank the committee for all their work. I'm supportive of the effort here. I think you are doing important work for our citizens and for our employees, and I look forward to the result.
Thank you.
If there's no further lights, is there a motion? Second, roll call.
Palermo. Yes. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 39 is approved, 7-0. Item 40, an ordinance levying a special tax and assessment on certain lots, parts lots, and pieces of real estate in district number SWSR 2022-01 is amendment of the whole requested by the Public Works Department.
The vote on number 40 is today. I will note we have an amendment of the whole. Is there a motion? No further lights, roll call.
Palermo. Yes. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 41, an ordinance to amend section 23-177 of the Omaha Municipal Code by changing the salary range of the employment classification entitled Superintendent of Permits and Inspections. Personnel Board recommends approval. B is amendment of the whole requested by the Law Department.
The vote on number 41 is today. I'll also note the amendment of the whole. Roll call.
Palermo. Yes. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 42, an ordinance to amend section 23-177 of the Omaha Municipal Code by adding the employment classification entitled Technical Systems Coordinator. Personnel Board recommends approval. B is amendment of the whole requested by the Law Department.
The vote on number 42 is today, also with an amendment of the whole. Roll call.
Palermo. Yes. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Yes. Johnson. Melton. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. One public hearing can be held for items 43 through 45. Item 43, an ordinance approving a pilot agreement with Automotus, Inc. for automated curbside revenue services. Item 44, an ordinance to amend various sections of Chapter 36 of the Omaha Municipal Code to create smart loading zones and hospitality zones. Item 45, an ordinance to amend Omaha Municipal Code Sections 43-151 through 43-154 and 34-1, addressing fees applied for use of public streets, alleys, and sidewalks, and the department responsible for issuing said permits.
Public hearings on items 43, 44, and 45 are today. We'll first hear from Mr. Smith on a short overview of these items as they are new.
Ken Smith, Public Works Department. What you have in front of you today is kind of us trying to keep up with technology and what's happening out there. Certainly there's been a proliferation of delivery services that happened over the last few years, especially through COVID, whether it was Amazon delivery services or getting your food delivered to you. Those uses are certainly creating a demand at the curb that we need to address. The curb is no longer just a parking space or utilized for a meter, so we need to figure out what's happening there and get better utilization out of it. Also, we're addressing our existing loading zones. Our existing loading zones are basically an applicant is the abutting property owner, and basically that sits idle for a lot of the time that we're doing. So we're trying to create these smart zones that we can create different services throughout the day, different points of peaks for whether it's food delivery during the day or cargo. as well as maybe Uber and Lyft in the evening. For the last few months, we've been doing a lot of data collection on the services been having. We've had some cameras up that were provided to us through automotives, and we've been also working with the service delivery vendors as well to identify this. So our goals are basically safety, to make sure that we're providing safe access to the curb for the drivers. They're not blocking pedestrian ways, bicyclists, or traffic flow. To get utilization out of the curb space that is existing there, and basically to enhance transportation overall in the denser areas. So, thank you.
Thank you. Then here to answer questions.
Yes, I'm.
Okay. Any other proponents that want to speak today?
I don't know, excuse me, I don't know if I'm a proponent, opponent. I kind of just have questions a little bit. My name is Luke Schroer, 2522 South 33rd Street, Omaha, Nebraska. I use the bike lanes a lot. I actually moved up here from Bellevue because I work downtown and I want to use my car less. So I'm in the Hanscom Park area. And I can jump on a bike lane pretty easy to get downtown. And I know we've had trouble with people parking in those bike lanes. And it's not just a nuisance. I know in some of the language here, they're talking about arterials. And we think about arterials as related to cars a lot of times, but we do have a beautiful bike lane that runs east and west that I use frequently. And that is kind of like an arterial. So I'm just curious how this would affect those bike lanes, and if how much that's going to be taken into consideration with the new zones. And another piece, we have the electric scooters. You acknowledge that technology is getting forward, and I love those scooters, but we have wheelchair accessibility problems from time to time, and like strollers and things. Would designating some areas for where those are parked, would that be something that this would address? Would that be tangentially related or need to be considered differently? Because it's not technically a loading zone, but those scooters do park for hours at a time on public curbs and sidewalks. So maybe if that could be considered during this process too. I guess I have more questions than for or against, but that's all I have for this item. So.
Thank you. Those are good questions. We'll ask those here in a minute. Are there any other proponents that want to speak today?
Donnie Johnson, 4928 North 52nd Street, the Johnson Equestrian Foundation, and North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation. And I apologize, Mr. President, I thought you was a part of the Omaha Chamber of Commerce when you was 24 like I did, and the United States Senate Chamber of Commerce like I did when I was 26. So that might be why you get confused sometimes when I try to explain things. But I got in trouble before at WWT when I was coming back from Washington, D.C., and Mrs. Peterson at WWT said focus on Omaha. So I understand that. But I oppose Mrs. Hadley. She's a wonderful young lady in the planning department. But can you also look into this process that, like for instance, this gentleman just come up before me. He doesn't even know what side he's supposed to be on. So you might want to ask him to sit down until you figure it out, instead of asking me to stay on what is that? On the subject. So since he didn't know what he was talking about, then why was he talking? Ain't none of my business. I'm just saying that the member of the Omaha Chamber of Commerce I became a part of at 24, we've lost Ross Steakhouse. That might be where the confusion is at, because Mr. Warren Buffett and all them guys in 1965, they were screwing up then, they screwing up now. Anyway, Anthony I hear is closing too. So
Donnie, we're talking about 43, 44, and 45, right?
Yeah, like this guy here. The one that was speaking before me, he didn't even know what side to be on. I'm just saying, if every chance we get a chance to get in front of Mrs. Hadley, just ask us to come down and give us some time about North Omaha, we're going to do it. In the meantime, you can talk to more people who don't even know what side to be on.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other proponents to number 43, 44, and 45 in the audience? Seeing none, we do have a proponent by Zoom. We'll get you off mute here in a minute. Armin Kazarian. I think I said that correctly, from Los Angeles. All right, go ahead.
Good afternoon, City Council members. My name is Armin Kazarian, and I'm the Vice President General Manager for Automotus, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you. Seeing no other proponents, are there any opponents to number 43, 44, and 45? Seeing none, public hearings closed. Mr. Begley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. This is for either Armin or Ken. The gentleman asked some good questions there regarding scooters, bikes in these areas that these zones might be put. Can you respond to that so we got a better understanding?
Yeah, certainly. Ken Smith, Public Works Department. Although this doesn't address all those items he mentioned, it does help us get the vehicles next to the curb where they need to be in order to address the safety concerns that drivers, they're either parking in the traffic lanes or parking in bike lanes or other areas, pedestrian crosswalks. It frees up those spaces and provides a safer access for all of those. Typically, you'll see a truck or something parked in the traffic lane or a bike lane. Now that bicyclist or scooter person riding the scooter has to traverse and go around that vehicle. Now they're going out into the traffic lane further. So certainly this would help with that situation.
Okay. And we talked in pre-council this morning, to your point you made, it's going to be a zone. So if I pick up my cell phone and I call an Uber, we're going to have a zone where it's safe so that Uber isn't stopping in the middle of traffic and somebody's going to zip around where there's cars coming around. It's going to be in a safe, secured zone where the driver and the person that ordered the Uber might have to walk a couple blocks. Number one, for a safety zone, correct? And number two, so you're communicating better, it's efficient, and for pedestrian safety, I know that's a big thing in several of the neighborhoods in my district as well as others. I think of Blackstone, Exarban, the Old Market, Little Bohemia. These are good tools, I think, for people, for pedestrian safety, number one, but picking people up, because I know I had some outreach from a constituent earlier in the year that Public Works and you guys kind of assist me on, kind of educating me a little bit on this program that you've been looking into and comparing to other cities. This has been done elsewhere you studied, is that correct?
There is another city that's teamed up with Automotus. It's been Pittsburgh, and they've launched this program as well. We have been looking at numerous softwares. This is actually our 5th one since 2019. We've been looking at and evaluating, so we've put up cameras and been collecting data for almost 3 years now on this system and how it will work. So our goal would be to provide safer access to the curb, to drop off pedestrians, drop off goods and services, those things that we need to get out of the traffic lane, out of the pedestrian crosswalks, and next to the curb.
So I talked about the Uber, and this morning you talked about FedEx, the Budweiser truck, delivery trucks. Explain how the balance will work. That typically those are during the day, correct? The delivery trucks. Kind of go through that, what we talked about a little bit this morning.
Yeah, well, we've obviously working with Automotus, we've developed kind of problem statements that we're looking at doing. One is addressing those large delivery trucks during a lunch or an after, 5 o'clock when, in the old market, all your visitors are coming to that area. So maybe we could address a fee associated. Hey, you can come during that time, but we're going to hit you a little bit higher with a fee with that. Along with geofencing certain areas where we want pickups to happen or where we want. So when you open up your app for your ride share service, it will say you have to go to this location to get picked up, or this is the preferred location for drop off.
So to simplify it, we're using technology, advanced technology for pedestrian and traffic safety. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ken, I had a few follow-ups
Yes.
too. So one can see the logic behind this and the method towards more efficiently managing drop-off zones and traffic and parking, which is your job in the Parking and Mobility Division. Councilmember Begley addressed the scooter issue. I just wanted to clarify also that the bike lane issue. there is a current city ordinance passed where one cannot park in a designated bike lane, and so this would not impact that kind of situation, right?
No, but this is to help provide those drivers, those delivery drivers, an area where they can park and stay out of those lanes and other pedestrian bike path areas.
Yeah, so you think it actually will help a situation like that?
That is the goal, yes.
Yeah. And then just a little bit more, can you flesh this out a little bit more, how this would play out in reality? So if you're in the old market or you're a business owner in Dundee or Benson, what's this mean for you? I suppose it could mean a stall or two of current parking is no longer designated for that. It's designated for a drop-off zone. So there could be that impact, but from your perspective, it's a positive to a neighborhood business district because it otherwise addresses the issue of trucks that are stopped and probably backing up traffic or unsafe for pedestrians, or the things they need to conduct business are sometimes not done very efficiently during the day.
Yeah. Yes, in our current ordinance assigns the loading zone to the property owner that abuts that curb line, and therefore it's kind of taken out of utilization for anybody else. Our hope is to address that and say, hey, there are other property owners in this area that could use a loading zone or use a drop-off area for guests or wherever it may be. So we can combine all those things into one area, and then having the flexibility to switch it from a passenger loading zone to a freight loading zone throughout the day in different peaks and times. So those are the things we've been evaluating over the last few months and few years.
And if you're a delivery driver, you could be subject to those fees. Would an Uber or a Lyft also be subject to those fees? How would that work?
Yes, the hope is to switch our fees from the property owner to the user of that space.
Okay. And I'm sure we have the technology through this contractor that does that, but you want to describe how that works?
Yes. The software is a AI software, artificial intelligence software. It starts capturing plates and running them through the DMV. Then we get the owner information. Working with the vendors, we can also find out if it's an Uber, Lyft, or if it's what delivery service it may be associated with, and we can bill accordingly with them. I will say there will be a learning curve to this, trying to bring everybody on board and communicate how this will work, but certainly it's within the means between Automotus and ourselves to do.
And in terms of rideshare, that's paid by the driver. I suppose it could be passed on to the passenger, but
Yes. In other areas, they do have fees or exchange fees that are passed on to the driver or the rider.
okay.
Yeah.
But overall, it's been your experience and the experience of other communities. It makes for a more efficient experience, better ridership. What are the other benefits of doing so?
I think you see now, our OPD would tell you that they have to close down Howard Street during certain times because of the traffic amount people are trying to drop off or get picked up in that area. Harney Street, you see a lot of vehicles stop in the middle of the street, dropping off passengers, picking them up. And those are the things we want to address, is get away from that activity happening in a traffic lane and get next to the curb where it safely can happen.
Okay. And places where you would look to implement this are probably mostly likely downtown, the old market, potentially around hotels, but I suppose there could be neighborhood business districts too?
Yeah, anywhere where we see a density or a use of this where, we have high pedestrian peaks or high usage. Certainly the old market, neighborhood business districts like Benson, South Hill certainly lend themselves to do this as well.
And if these are approved in 2 weeks, I guess, that's a permitting system managed by you. These don't come back to the city council or anything like that, right?
No. And this is part of our bigger goal. This will come later in our phase. We'll have another, our parking ecosystem, we're calling it, we'll have to come back to you for some additional contracts. We'll see this kind of be, once we get the payment structures in place for that, this will come on board with that. So this is really kind of getting our ducks in a row as far as establishing the ordinance and getting it up front, and then be able to get our PR in place to communicate this to the vendors.
Okay. Has there been any outreach so far within any business owners or any?
We have worked with other vendors and Automotus as well as working with the delivery services. They're aware of this. I believe one vendor actually said, hey, sounds like a great idea. Just tell me how much I owe each month. I'd rather do that than jeopardize my drivers or put them in harm's way or even getting citations for being out in the traffic lanes.
Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate that. So there's a lot going into this. What I would like to know is, because so much has to go into changes within the code to make this allowable, how long have you been working on this pilot agreement?
On this one in particular, it's been probably about 6 months, but we started with Accord, which is a Google-owned company, back in 2019, and started capturing the data to see, was this a problem? Is there a way to address it?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, certainly we're not inventing the wheel here. So when did you update the city council on these changes that we have in front of us for public hearing today?
I'm sorry?
What was the first time you updated those who actually vote for these sort of issues that are on our agenda? When was the first update?
I believe it was back in May. We came back to the Public Works Committee and we kind of briefed you that this was coming to to the council eventually, yes.
Okay. So you gave us an update that something like this was coming. When do we actually see it or hear about it? It would be the first reading, right? Last week?
Yes.
First reading? And then when did you give us an in-person update on what we have in front of us today?
Again, we've been back in May, then again today. We're not quite there to implementing the program, so there's a lot to go through to that point. So we're slowly starting to roll out the communication part of it.
So would it be fair to say that because it wasn't ready for rollout, it's public hearing today, we had Public Works Committee today at 9:30, that's when we were as a committee allowed to ask questions on this, like face-to-face with you?
Also back in May, we addressed it. Hannah Depenew and I came to the Public Works Committee. We went through a list of items that we were working on. One was the parking ecosystem, one was the curb management things, and then we talked about the associated ordinance changes that would be coming along with it.
Okay. Do we know about all the changes for 43, 44, 45 back in May?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you send me that information?
Okay.
'Cause I don't recall seeing all of it.
Okay.
But I will say, we talked about this in Public Works Committee today at 9:30, which is great, but it's a lot. It's a lot to have on the agenda with everything moving. Because when you hear about things, that's great, but a lot of things change. To actually see it and then have to vote on it a matter of a few hours later. And obviously it wasn't rushed. You're talking about 2019, you started talking about it.
Yes.
We got a really brief update in May, which I don't remember. And maybe we just brought up that it was coming forward. But we have it in front of us to vote today with a matter of, obviously, if people don't know, we don't talk a lot, although we do ask questions when it's first reading, because that's usually when we first know about something, unless it was brought up in Public Works Committee. But today, actually, is when we get to dive into this. And it's just not enough time for everything going on. Our constituents have questions. You might have a couple people down here, but a lot of people we have questions. We talked about it at lunch today. We didn't know certain things about what was going on. I take that back. I believe we could have been updated on this much earlier than today's Public Works Committee, and I'm disappointed in that. I'm not saying it's not going to pass. I'm sure it will.
I do believe there was additional material that was sent. I need to double check on that between May and now too. I'll have to check on the exact timing and I can get you a time frame on it.
Yeah, we get lots of stuff.
Sure.
But what we have to approve is what's in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
And the time for them questions came today at 9:30 this morning. And exactly 8 hours later, we're discussing it here.
Okay.
In a public hearing. I'm just saying, I think we could have got this information a lot sooner, especially with as important as it is with the development happening around Omaha. It'll come into play in a lot of different areas.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. No further lights. Next item.
Item 46, an ordinance to approve a major amendment to a mixed-use district development agreement for Pine Creek located northwest of 156 and Reynolds Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing on number 46 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 47, an ordinance to approve and authorize a contract with Creighton University for providing paramedic and EMT training for a period of 2 years.
Public hearing on number 47 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 48, an ordinance to establish a Class B flammable liquid storage district, number B-212, located at 6936 L Street.
Public hearing on number 48 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 49, an ordinance to approve an amendment to the HDR Exarban Village Zone 6 redevelopment agreement.
Public hearing on number 49 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Bridget Hadley, City Planning, here to answer any questions you may have about this project, and Jay Noddle is also here.
Thank you.
Mr. President, members of the council, city staff, Jay Noddle, 2285 South 67th Street in Exarban Village. The reason we're here today is because when we first started the development of what we call Zone 6, the block in question here in Exarban Village, we weren't quite sure about how the public would respond to free public open space with lots of amenities and things to do in that space. And at the time, the area where what I called the pop-up park at the time was built was an area that was previously designated for a future office building. Since we've had a lot of years of experience with the village, watching how people use the space, and having gone through what we hope is the worst of the pandemic, having the public's desire and use of public space reinforced. Since then, we've made arrangements to make the park permanent in that location and move a future office building around to the south side of that block. So having said that, our original TIF amount that we were eligible for was approximately $16,230,000, I believe. When the original TIF package came through, we asked at the time for just $15 million, which is a huge amount of money. But the reason for that was we wanted to be conservative and we wanted to make sure that people really used the space the way we had hoped. And we thought we would see what would happen. Since then, the use of the public space has been absolutely overwhelming. We have expanded the dog park twice already. We're planning a third. We're adding shade structures, or we plan to add shade structures, and replace some of the real temporary materials we use with things that are more permanent. We've also learned that if we put covers over portions of that space, particularly the area between the HDR office building and the inner rail, and areas out towards the north of that, we can extend the season, and quite frankly, people have asked us if we could find a way to do that. So that's the reason we're back. We have worked with the staff and others to make sure that the amount of money we're talking about here doesn't exceed what was originally available. And secondly, we aren't asking for any additional time. So there's approximately 10 and a half years, I think, left on the original 15-year TIF notes. We're not changing that. This is the amount of money that is able to be added and amortized in full over that period of time. The other thing I want to note is there has been work that's been done in this area here the last 6 or 8 months. Those are owner dollars. The work that will happen with the TIF dollars, which are really actually owner dollars as well, just a different source, that will complete the work in that area, and there's absolutely no money being held for any other purposes than spending it in these areas. So just wanted to say all that and thank you very much. I know it's been a long day for everyone, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Donnie Johnson, 4928 North 52nd Street, the Johnson Equestrian Foundation, and the North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation. One of the things when I joined the United States Senate Chamber of Commerce is that these folks in the Omaha Planning Department, they're not leaving any room for my international student for electrical outlets of cars. Up the street, there's a doctor building right on the corner. We were saving the southwest corner for all electrical cars coming that Mr. Elon Musk is putting out on the street. But they keep taking the TIF money for us poor folks to get electrical outlets. There's one right up the street. You go up there on 72nd.
So you're referring to Exarban, Donnie? This is number
Yeah, Exarban. The Exarban Village over there.
49. The electric outlets at Exarban?
Yeah, they have a big old get-together on the weekend. What y'all selling over there now? In the meantime, I've been studying them. But in the meantime, TIF, all is that state money, federal money, or for everyone, or just for the University of Nebraska and the Baxter Arena? I don't know. You tell me, Mr. President, you're the one with the college degree? They told me I'd never end up at Harvard, and I end up over there. I don't know why.
Thank you. Any other opponents to number 49?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I'm against this, not just because it's TIF involved, but perhaps it would help if this was all written differently. I sit here and I think, wait a minute, we've already done this one time. Do they not own the property and they're back here asking for another over $1 million? Who owns the property right now? And who's going to pay this extra TIF money? There aren't any residents. Well, there are some residents living in apartments there in that area. I guess they're going to be less than affordable very, very shortly, aren't they? Or outside the boundary of that area are the people that own houses that pay mortgages. Are they going to pay through higher property taxes for the next 25 years on additional some $1 million? These are just things that the average citizen needs to understand if we're incorrect on it. But it sounds like the old Wimpy Burger thing, like I'll pay you this tomorrow for a cheeseburger today. And I think you should vote against it or table it until it can get clarified in a better way for the average citizen.
Thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearings closed. Mr. Begley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple comments on this item. In talking to Mr. Noddle when it came up on the agenda, in the conversation I had and the questions that if you want to step back up, Jay, after I'm done with my comments, I just got a question for you. So this is in the middle of Exarban. It's in my district. Number one, it's a free public space. And people can go up there. There's free live music 2 or 3 times a week here. There's a dog park that is going to be expanded again. And I frequent Exarban as I do many places in my district. And the dog park up there, I know, Jay, I had an email from a constituent several months ago that you and I had talked about. And it had to be kind of reiterate to people that this is a free public park. And there's a lot of great amenities there. You can go bring a picnic basket and a sandwich. You can listen to music and you go buy a cold one. You can enjoy your family there. So in respect to, back to the original TIF money you got for this, Jay, the money you're asking for here on this item is not in excess of what you originally asked or were eligible for. Is that correct?
Jay Noddle, 2285 South 67th Street. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And again, when you and I discussed this, I asked about, and again, when I frequent up there, I see the people. What did you say that you would estimate between 500 and 3,000 a day? Is that a rough estimate?
Well, I would say there's between, without special activities taking place, and depending on what the weather's doing, there's between 500 and 3,000 people a day using this part of Exarban Village. We sort of think of this area as Omaha's living room. It's always intended to be free. People, as you said, can bring a picnic. They can bring their own drinks as long as they're not alcoholic beverages. We have a liquor license there, and so we have to be adhere to those requirements. But there's free Wi-Fi. Now there's instead of just electrical outlets, and there's a ton of electrical outlets throughout the area. Now we have charging stations. We're adding, that's not part of this request, but we're adding more and more charging stations for electric vehicles throughout at owner's expense in all the garages. So it's really, this is really an example of if you provide, whomever it is, if we provide great spaces with all the right current parts and pieces, people will use it. And on the weekends, when the weather's nice, the place has just got all kinds of families all over the place. We have beach balls and soccer balls and all kinds of stuff that we throw out there, and the kids just go crazy with it. I think for mom and dad, it's a great place because there's 400 babysitters watching kids run around and play, and that's just in this area. That doesn't include Stinson Park and some of the other areas.
I appreciate your comments on that because, again, it's a good economic tool in Exarban for jobs for people because so many people go up there. And again, I like going up there to Exarban, and I like to see it growing, and it's for the public good, and it's a free public park. And again, the dog lovers, which I'm one, I'm sure many of my constituents are, I think they can even give the dog a bath up there if I remember right. So I appreciate your at least trying to explain a little more as we go forward with this in the days and weeks ahead. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. I have one question for you too, Mr. Noddle. So I agree that Interrail is an impressive public space, and it shows that Omahans are prepared to support such public spaces, and I think that's a big part of where we need to head. My question is more general in nature to you about Exarban Village and development. Have you had a chance to view or analyze the new FEMA floodplain maps that have come out?
We have.
And is there a potential impact to the Exarban area overall? That's been a concern of ours on the planning committee, and how those maps might impact development throughout the city.
There is a potentially a very significant impact, certainly going forward with new structures on what little land is left that hasn't been developed. And there's been two projects. Most recently, the new Right at Home building, right on the corner of Mercy Road and 67th Street. And just before that, actually Zone 6 and the HDR building itself. That land had to be raised so that the first floor elevation of those buildings was above the previous number, which was an updated number. Now there's a new set of criteria out, and it's gonna, if it stays the way it is, it'll probably result in more site work, buildings coming up more than they had in the past, those first floors coming up more than they had in the past. And it's not gonna be as smooth to walk around as it has been or as we thought it might be. And then the other thing that can happen, depending on how far all of that goes, when first floor spaces are renovated, there could be some floodplain related matters that the city is put in a position to monitor and enforce that hadn't previously been the case.
Okay. Thanks. I'd be interested in talking to you more on that issue. As an aside, off this agenda item.
If you don't mind, I might bring a couple technical experts with me when we do that.
That'd be great. Thank you. No further lights. Next item.
One public hearing can be held for items 50 and 51. Item 50, an ordinance to designate an enhanced employment area located south of 77th and Dodge Street. Item 51, an ordinance to approve a second amendment to the 77th and Dodge Streets redevelopment agreement.
Public hearings on numbers 50 and 51 are today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Jennifer Taylor, City Law Department. I will be brief. Pre-council this morning, Councilman Harding asked for a map. So I will offer as an amendment to the whole tomorrow that to be submitted to the clerk's office, but there is the, I don't know what to do now. Okay. Am I supposed to do something? There it is.
Yep.
Okay.
The top will scope out for you here.
There we go.
I know it's your first time at City Council. So.
I've never been here before. I don't know how any of this stuff works. So anyway, it's just Lot 1 in the 77th and Dodge Street redevelopment area. So there has been plats that you have seen, but it is just Lot 1. It is the one that's highlighted in blue here. I will attach this map to the ordinance. It will be submitted as an amendment to the whole. That will be available for you in 2 weeks. Happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Thank you. Any other proponents today?
Thank you, Mr. President. Brent Beller, 11440 West Center Road, on behalf of the applicant, 121 Acquisition Company. Yeah, as Jennifer alluded to, just a quick refresher. This is that property. So obviously, Nebraska Furniture Mart's to the east. Nebraska Furniture Mart had transferred some of these, actually sold some of these lots over to 121 Acquisition Company. Last year, you all approved a plat of this entire area. Lot 1 is the lot in question that the EEA is being placed on. You may recall there were a number of discussions with how we were trying to improve Rose Blumpkin Drive, just for safety concerns and logistical concerns that we couldn't get a design that Public Works could sign off on as well. And so that kind of really scrapped the plans on the corridor that borders Dodge Street. So everything that's before you today is still that Lot 1, which is going to be a floor and decor. If you've gone to the Mart here recently, that building's about done, 80,000 square feet, 65 new jobs, new payroll coming on, about $3 million for that facility alone. So pretty good investment. Besides all that, nothing's changed other than the cost of this project when we were before you with TIF was $13 million, now it's $18 million. So the 2.9 of EEA, we're not asking for anything other that was in our TIF app, nothing's changed. We're just finally formalizing this. And get it going before Floor and Decor opens this fall. So this will be a 1% sales tax or EEA tax on all the sales generated on Lot 1. So with that, I'm here for any questions, and we appreciate the council's consideration.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, 68132. You're probably getting pretty tired of me. But anyway, is this the Rose Blumpkin Drive area where the big mound of dirt with all the weeds on it? I wonder about that as well as the crossroads. But anyway, this is a little confusing again. I guess the property owner is not going to build on the property. If he does, he's selling the business or the building or lease the building to an occupant that he then is requesting this occupation tax of. Something like that, because why would the property owner request an imposition of an occupation tax on himself? So maybe there should be some words added to this thing. But I hope they do something with that mound of dirt pretty soon, because the weeds will be taller than all the buildings and the skyline. And maybe it's going to fall into the same questionable, will it be completed, as the crossroads. Thank you.
Actually, I was going to ask about that dirt mound, which I'll do in a minute. But first, any other opponents today? See none, public hearings closed. Mr. Beller, if you would. Actually, I was going to ask that same question. That dirt mound is related to the project, right? And will soon be taken care of and be not there anymore?
Yes, Brent Beller, 11440 West Center Road, on behalf of the applicant. So the dirt mound, and you alluded to a minute ago, so FEMA has redrawn a lot of those maps so that stockpile of dirt is there. Obviously, we want to develop those lots and not just store dirt on them. But as the MART still has some trailers over on the west side of the property, and that's where FEMA's kind of revising those maps. And so that dirt will stay there until those maps are finalized and we know if we have to build up any of those sites. I don't know that it's necessarily not public knowledge, but there's, it'll be tough for the MART if they change those maps and how they do any new development or any new buildings, as you alluded to. If you touch the first floor and they redraw those maps, you're going to have to raise sites, and so that dirt might become valuable for them. So for now, it's staying there until some of the dust, no pun intended, settles.
I was going to ask you that same question too, so I'm glad you went there. That's a challenge for this area for sure, and so you're watching that closely, and are you participating with the FEMA process? And
yeah, I personally am not. I know Ryan Blumkin and some of the representatives of the MART they're heavily involved in all those discussions and knowing how that affects that site, because it'll make it difficult depending on how those maps get finalized.
Mm-hmm. So that's concern. I find that concerning personally too, because we have some great investment happening in that area, and they're a major employer and produce a lot of sales tax to the city, amongst other things. But the dirt. So I understand the value of the dirt and why that's still there and why that needs to be there. Maybe until that's finalized, because you might need it. But that's a long way off, right? That could be a year out.
It could be. Yeah, I can't sit here and tell you that it's going to be gone in 6 months or even a year. I know it won't forever be there. But we just don't know until those maps get finalized.
Okay. Maybe we can have further conversation about that too, because that is rather unsightly right on Dodge Street right there.
Understood.
Okay. Thanks. No further lights, Madam Clerk.
Non-action items 52 through 72 do not require public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda for public hearing and or vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on agenda for consideration.
Second, roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Begley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Meeting is adjourned at 4:47.